When we first started, and as expected, I think the biggest barrier was silence. And when I say silence, I mean in the sense that, one could not talk about it. There was silence also from the fact of understanding what is really happening. When we first approached schools or colleges or, corporates, people were not willing to take on a workshop with the fear that if they take a workshop on, it means that there is a mental health problem.
How did you broach these subjects?
I thought it's best to take the bull by its horn. There was a huge gap in even awareness. So there was a whole lot of people who didn't even know what was mental health. In the Hindi language, there is no word, no singular word that talks about anxiety, that says anxiety.
Really?
Or depression.
Do you feel that more than that, anxiety and depression, that's really where the biggest problem is?
Anxiety and depression definitely are quite high up on the radar, and there could be various reasons for it.
Like, there's so much being talked about, but I don't know how much of it is actually happening on ground.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when we first started out, it was really just talking about mental health. Now people are asking for systems and structure and, programs on how to embed mental health counseling or mental health programs or mental health awareness. So I think definitely that has shifted.
Do you think the fact that many celebrities have also now started openly talking about it, that has also helped perhaps?
Yes, definitely.
Hello, I'm Aabha Bakaya, and today's conversation on our podcast is about something that's really important to everyone, and that is our mental health. Something that's gotten a lot of traction over the past few years, but the spotlight needs to stay on this consistently, intentionally, and systemically to disseminate the kind of stigma around it and ensure that its true impact over the future is fully realized. In fact, the sustainability of any institution, any movement, any community depends deeply on the emotional resilience and mental well-being of the people behind those frameworks. To explore this, we're honored to be joined by Neerja Birla, mental health advocate and founder and chairperson of Mpower. Through Mpower, she has helped build structured mental health ecosystems across multiple institutions, while also consistently advocating for stigma-free conversations around emotional well-being. Beyond building institutional frameworks, she has been instrumental in shifting the narrative around mental health from something addressed only in moments of crisis to a foundational emotional pillar that quietly underpins how individuals think, lead, and live every single day. Neerja, it's a privilege to have you with us on Business Today.
Pleasure, thank you.
So I remember when you first launched Mpower, and it was something that everyone was looking at in terms of how it would play out, because no one had approached mental health in such a structured way before. What was the biggest mindset gap or challenge when you first set out to do this, and how have things evolved in these 10 years?
So 10 years is quite a journey. So when we first started, and as expected, I think the biggest barrier was silence, because it was usually stigmatized, which one already knew. It was a big taboo topic, and silence remained the biggest barrier to, it was a big mindset barrier. And when I say silence, I mean in the sense that, one could not talk about it. There was silence also from the fact of understanding what is really happening. And so, that obviously then came in the way of accessing mental health care, that came in the way of even just sharing the load. And that in itself was very isolating as well, right? So, and silence even came in the way of people actually accepting any kind of mental health workshops. When we first approached schools or colleges or, corporates, people were not willing to take on a workshop with the fear that if they take a workshop on, it means that there is a mental health, problem, crisis in that organization, and therefore they shirked away from it.
Right.
So silence in itself became a big entry to barrier and a big, big deterrent.
They didn't want to acknowledge it or endorse it in any way.
Yeah.
I don't think people were used to seeing it as a preventative solution or just a essential solution for mental health and regular hygiene in that sense. What were the conversations like at the time? How did you broach these subjects, and how did you finally get to start seeing people changing their view?
So I thought it's best to take the bull by its horn. And we just, when we even approached, say, schools for workshops or say corporates, we, straight away spoke about mental health. And that's when I realized that there was a huge gap in even awareness. So there was a whole lot of people who didn't even know what was mental health. So we had to actually backtrack and start from that. So we first started actually talking about mental health and having mental health literacy, awareness.
Sure.
Because, like, say, for example, in the Hindi language, there is no word, no singular word that talks about anxiety, that says anxiety.
Really?
Or depression. So we had to really backtrack, and we saw even in rural communities, people were not even aware of what they were experiencing. They knew that they were feeling low, tired, so on and so forth. But there was no idea, there was no awareness or concept that it could be a mental health concern. And for that matter, even in our urban settings, multiple times when we've worked with different communities, when we started with the mental health literacy workshops, and sensitization camps, is when they realize that probably what they themselves are going through is something called anxiety or is depression. Till then, it was just burnout, fatigue, demotivated. One never understood that there could actually be a physiological or a chemical reason to it.
So what are the early signs, let's say, of burnout, fatigue, or do you feel that more than that, anxiety and depression, that's really where the biggest problem is when it comes to what our population here faces?
Anxiety and depression definitely are quite high up on the radar, and there could be various reasons for it. And one would normally see it with burnout or fatigue, irritability, just generally feeling demotivated.
So those are the symptoms.
Lack of interest in activities that otherwise would be of interest to you.
Do you feel as an ecosystem that people are now, or families are now trying to work at finding solutions to manage some of this impact? There's so much being talked about, but I don't know how much of it is actually happening on ground.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when we first started out, it was really just talking about mental health, right? And just creating awareness, like I'm saying. But I think now people are asking for systems and structure and, programs on how to embed mental health, counseling or mental health programs or mental health awareness. So I think definitely that has shifted. And I think even as families, just simple thing like even, when we started out, I would never get calls from anybody. But now, over the last, say, 5 years, I do get people calling in, asking for help, or just asking that, somebody in the family, somebody in the ecosystem is going through an issue. What can we do? How do we help? Asking for suggestions. So, people are definitely open to it. People are definitely wanting to seek help, are wanting support. Even in institutions and organizations, people are wanting to set up systems. So, at least from, talking about what is mental health to how do we embed it in our system is, that shift is happening.
Do you think the fact that many celebrities have also now started openly talking about it, that has also helped perhaps?
Yes, definitely, because it normalizes it. I think the whole idea is how do we normalize conversations and how do we normalize anxiety or depression or any other mental health condition.
So when we look at, for instance, leadership in large organizations, and we're of course here on Business Today, many leaders today face incredible challenges when it comes to managing their mental health without compromising how they come across as leaders, being in control, being authoritative. How can they strike the right balance? What are some of the key challenges you think they come across?
So to my mind, I don't think that the two are not different. I mean, they both can coexist. You could be, having a mental health condition or being anxious or being depressed doesn't undermine authority, because the two are completely different. It's like saying, would having diabetes undermine the authority? It's pretty much on that same sort of spectrum. So traditionally and culturally, I think having a mental health condition is viewed as being weak, but that is not the case. It is a chemical imbalance at the end of the day. So just talking about it, in fact, I think makes, you more sort of vulnerable and makes you more of an empathetic leader than a weak leader. I mean, I don't think that that really undermines authority.
That's a nice way to put it, actually. That's a really nice way to put it. So, since you said that it's, it's a chemical imbalance, I just want to clarify, because a lot of the time people look for reasons for mental health issues. Some people blame it on, family issues. Some say it's pressure at work, or there could be certain life incidents. But everyone's looking for a reason or a trigger, or mapping it to that and trying to find a trend. Particularly here in India, where I think there's also a lot of focus on the kind of work-life balance we have, or the fact that there are so many societal pressures. Can it be linked back to such sociological issues, or is it purely a chemical imbalance?
So I think the two are related. So all the sociological issues that you just mentioned could all be leading to burnout, for example, or emotional labor, or feeling overwhelmed, and all of them could be triggers in order to induce a chemical imbalance.
Wow.
It is genetic, but that's also sociological pressures that then lead to these sort of imbalances and anxiety and depression. So there could be different reasons for it. It's not either or.
Neerja, you've come such a long way from an idea that you had today. Give us a sense of the scale of Mpower in terms of the number of outlets you have, or the kind of workshops that you do, the organizations that you work with. Give us a sense of how it's grown.
So we're working with the government, a lot of public-private partnerships. We've got about 7 of them. We're working across the country. We're working with the CISF as their mental health partners, where we're helping them embed mental health programs into their structures and institutionalizing it. Right from screening to awareness camps to direct counseling services.
Wonderful.
We're working with the Maharashtra Police. We're working with the Mumbai Police. We're providing counseling services to the victims of rape and domestic violence, as well as actually supporting the police personnel. We work with child trauma centers across Maharashtra for early intervention and early detection of, with children who are vulnerable. So we have various public and private partnerships. We're also across the country with different clinics in different cities. We have a couple of foundations. We have a program called COPE, which is across colleges again, which is a peer-to-peer support system that we have, where we're trying to create mental health first aiders from within the community so that they become volunteers and help spread the message of mental health. They create safe spaces in their colleges so that other students can come and sort of, also it works as a support system, also helps to create awareness about it. We also have a Minds Matter curriculum, which we have across schools. Again, the idea being, how do we make it preventive? How do we embed it within the system?
Sure.
We're trying to get mental health care in spaces where it is needed and not far from the beneficiary.
Got it. And this normalizes it as well, right?
Yes. I think when it gets into the system, it just helps normalize it.
Are you finding any resistance still in people accepting it? Or, I know it's a long journey. I was speaking to an IPS officer this week, and she said that someone asked her, did you ever have any kind of mental health counseling? And she said, no, we just kind of relied on our, brotherhood at work or sisterhood at work. They didn't have anything formal at the time. But do you have cops, for example, saying that we're too busy to do all of this?
Well, yes and no. So there are certain organizations that are extremely open to it. For example, the CISF. They've been very open, and they've been actually wanting to embed mental health programs into their system, because I think they've seen, they have evidence, they've seen how it has worked. Not only has it reduced, say, the rate of suicide, but it's also increased, social interactions. It's reduced loneliness. I think just knowing that there is support for them has really enhanced their working. So things like that have really worked for them. So there are certain organizations that are really open. So there are people who are definitely asking for it.
That's really heartening to know. That's really heartening.
It is because, also traditionally men are supposed to be, the sex that doesn't ask for help. So having this kind of preventive service in something like a security force is really heartening.
That's wonderful. Share with us other such anecdotes, because all of this makes it so real for us, to really get an insight into what's happening on ground and how people are embracing the change.
So even I think in colleges, for example, with the youth, I think, there are a lot of colleges who are part of the COPE program. And I think generally youth by and large are far more open to it. They're open to acknowledging what they're going through, and then they're also open to seeking help. In fact, very often we have, in some of our college cells, we have our clients, the children who come and tell us that, who share very openly that they want to seek help, but the parents are not open to it. Or the parents don't want them to seek help. And the parents want that they should just somehow cope with it. So there are very often where they come and they don't want us to tell their parents because they're scared that they're going to stop that.
That's, it's just...
that's where the silence is still there. That's where the stigma is still there. So it's a long journey, and I think, trying to bring about any kind of paradigm shift does take time. I do believe that, it's the second generation after us. So which means my children's children who will really benefit the most, because I think the next generation will, have a much different outset and mindset when they're raising their children.
And when you've been on this journey, has it also shaped your own sense of vulnerability, emotional strength? Because you must have had to see so many people going through various things, even if it's through your team and what you're hearing and what you're seeing on ground, but it must have changed your perspective.
Definitely, it definitely builds resilience. I mean, because there are some stories that are really sad, and there are times when our teams have had to deal with, cases of suicide also. That is very sad, but it also helps you become more resilient. It increases your own vulnerability because you realize that you're as vulnerable as anybody else. But it also strengthens the resolve to do more of what you're doing.
Fantastic. For women specifically, do you feel that there are certain areas where we need to focus on in order to help women? Is there an accessibility issue in terms of, is it about paying for mental health, or is it just knowing where to go to access it, or is it being a little afraid that your family may find out? What are the reasons that prevent people from seeking?
I think it's multifactorial. It's pretty much all what you've just said, because in certain communities, access to mental health care, is a barrier. For example, in the rural communities, because the primary health centers are so far. So though in our program in Maharashtra and Samvedna, we actually have a tiered approach. So we've taken people from the community, frontline workers and volunteers and NGOs, trained them, and they've become the first point of contact. So they are kind of having mental health workshops and literacy programs in the community, which is then helping people identify if they're having any issues and whether they need to seek help. And then they go to the primary healthcare centers. So accessibility for communities like that is a barrier. A lot of times in urban India, fear of what the family will say, fear of being judged is a barrier. So then, there's always hesitation in seeking help.
And maybe privacy as well?
Privacy is a very big problem because, a lot of times houses are obviously small, they're shared spaces, so privacy then becomes an issue. So there are, I think, different reasons, and different barriers for different people. So coming to the price of it, of course, price also can be a barrier because, mental health services are not insured in OPDs.
Okay.
And a lot of the treatment actually happens in OPDs because that means sustained, sustained mental health care, which can go over weeks. And that itself then becomes, difficult because some people find the price prohibitive.
Right. No, absolutely. I think, when talking about women, because they go through so many different phases, men have other inhibitions, but with women, whether it's postpartum, whether it's menopause, there may be other things in between. Do you feel that they require a certain skill set in terms of people who can who are experienced enough to talk to them, whether it's women service providers, whether it's a comfortable space or a trustworthy space? How do you create that for them?
I think creating a safe space is really important. I think, so that people and women, or even men for that matter, can speak without the fear of being judged. And of course, confidentiality is a very big issue, especially in workplaces and otherwise also. So I think these, if we are able to have leadership convey these and instill this in their systems and in their workplaces, that would go a long way, at least in workplaces, for women to come up and speak about it.
Okay. With the advent of AI, what should we be prepared for? How is it going to change things for the better as well as for the worse?
So AI is here to stay. I think, the way I would look at it is just having a really balanced approach. There's a lot of good that AI is bringing. There's no doubt about it. I think as users, you don't want to become slaves to it. And I would say that for social media as well.
Sure.
It has definitely connected the world. There's a lot of upside to it. And we have to be careful of the pitfalls. And if we as users can be more mindful and can be responsible, and in turn help our children be more responsible users of it, I think that would be the right kind of balance to have.
Okay. You've also started to play a bigger role in terms of shaping policy around mental health in South Asia. You were recently at Davos. Tell us a little bit more about that. And are you finding these partnerships meaningfully coming together? Are you finding more and more avenues of people wanting to collaborate on this mission?
While the Western world has been there, I think India is really catching up, and so is and so is the global South. And I think because they've been there longer, there are some pathways that they have which are obviously more advanced. Having said that, I think the community program in India that we do is a great one. Okay. It's decentralized. It's actually taking and bringing care to people where they need it. Our district mental health program is very good. We just need to know how to enhance it better, how to work with it better. And now, of course, there are a lot of people who are wanting to come on as partners. People are looking towards India. The kind of network that we have, very few countries have. And we're definitely opening up to it. So even at Davos, there were some great conversations, people very much interested in coming on board. And we hope to see a lot of alliances coming through.
That sounds fantastic. What about in education? Where do you feel perhaps, you talked about embedding certain things when it comes to structurally, but what about starting really early on and getting it into the education system? Is that something that you've also already worked on?
So I do believe that that's extremely important. And that's why we have a program called Minds Matter. And I know there are other people also who have SEL programs. I think embedding it right from the beginning is really great because it's on the path of preventive. And it's also helping the children, teach them coping mechanisms. It's increasing their mental health literacy right from the start so that they are more empathetic, compassionate. They know how to deal with peers who may be having mental health conditions. Also teaching them it's not something to be stigmatized, not something to be judged. And these sort of concepts, if we are able to bring early on, it also goes towards the story of actually normalizing the whole thing.
Also, a lot of young children, very young in fact, have been dealing with a lot of peer pressure or social media-led pressure leading to suicides. We've seen a heightened spate of that. And I think a lot of parents are worried because even if their child is okay, but they're in the same class or same friend circle, they're worried about the kind of impact that trauma has even on them. Any sort of insight onto this? And, do you see this trend worsening? And how can we, as an ecosystem, help the kids?
So what we do at school is, every time we know that the pastoral team knows that there is a child who's going through a difficult patch. So we automatically, sort of focus and give more attention so as to support the child. And at the same time, there are conversations that are happening in the peer circle because we also want the peers to support them. And now at school, we've come to a stage where very often the children themselves go to the pastoral team, would go to the counselor and say, this child seems to be having a difficult time, this child seems to be getting bullied, or this child, or, if there are friends and they know there has been some kind of cyberbullying happening, they would go and tell the pastoral team that this so-and-so child or so-and-so friend is having a problem, needs to be attended to.
Got
So, creating that ecosystem is really important, and starting early on really makes a big difference.
So, Neerja, you've had your own journey as a leader as well, and building something that is so sensitive, such as a mental health institution that's touching so many lives. From your own journey and experiences, what are some of the guiding principles you can leave perhaps some of our younger watchers with who may be aspiring to be leaders themselves, to be more resilient, to be more emotionally strong? What would you guide them with?
So, one is, of course, now I can look back and say it's important to set boundaries. Difficult to do, but important to do. Trying to get this utopian balance, or rather trying to get a balance is utopian. I think everything in life is a little bit of a trade-off, and you have to be okay with certain trade-offs. At that point, you have to prioritize things at that point in time, balance it out at another time. But it is a trade-off. You're constantly having a trade-off. So if I'm here right now, there is something else that I'm not doing. Yeah. And you have to be okay with that. If you feel that, you're going to get a perfect balance, then that is not going to happen and you're going to beat yourself for it. So you have to be willing to let go of something in order to get something.
And be a little bit more forgiving of yourself.
And you have to be compassionate, and there will be days where you may not be able to do what you're setting out to do, but you have to be okay with it. So learning to also flow is a part of leadership, and as part of, to be able to be emotionally strong.
So when you look at Mpower today, what is the one thing that you'd say has stayed the same, and the one thing that has drastically changed, as anything would when you're building and growing, and that you can see is something that the journey has led to after 10 years?
So what has changed is the purpose.
Okay.
Purpose has remained the same right from the start, and that remains the same, and that's our actually North Star. The spirit of service, which has remained within the team. I think what has changed is the way we're approaching it, because I think when we started out, mental health itself was very nascent. So the nature, the way people are responding has changed, and the way we are dealing with it is also changing. The way we're coming up with programs, the kind of programs, the way we're institutionalizing it, the way we're approaching it, that has changed.
So you're constantly evolving as well. And do you ever have challenges in finding the right set of facilitators, team experts, so on and so forth?
I think that's a constant challenge.
It's a constant.
I think, and that's a common, challenge across the board for everybody, right? And especially, I think, for mental health and being a space of social impact, I think, getting right people on board is really important. You need somebody who's really driven by passion, also has a sense of purpose and works with a spirit of purpose, but is also, thinking of it from a very large scale. So getting that combination becomes difficult.
So if today somebody wanted to reach out to Mpower, whether it be to contribute or whether it be to get help, how would they do it? Just go to the website, simple?
Go to the website, yes, absolutely. And, you can reach out on my LinkedIn, you can reach out on Twitter. And the easiest thing is just get on the website and, email us, and we'll be very happy to have you on board.
Lovely. Neerja, thank you so much for joining us. I think this is an issue that is something that every individual has to grasp at some stage, and it resonates with everybody deeply. And it's great to get an insight from you also in terms of your own leadership journey and building Mpower over the last 10 years. So thank you so much for taking us through that today.
Thank you. Lovely to be here and my pleasure.